Welcome r/EntitledParents. You disowned me, so? That's no reason for keeping us out of your wedding. JJ came out to his family when he was about 27 years old. Aside from them, everyone else in his life knew he was gay, and there was a good reason for it. As he expected, his parents reacted horribly to the news and basically disowned him at the moment. They later told both extended families, and his uncles and grandparents cut him off too. His maternal grandmother went as far as to try to take him out of his dead maternal grandfather's will. She failed. Due to the will's conditions, no one could modify it, not even the main representative aka grandma, and homosexuality was not listed in the conditions. That could make the inheritance void, or grandpa didn't expect it to happen, or he just did not care. Take your guess. JJ was legally the partial owner of some properties and also got a substantial amount of money, which got even bigger when he reclaimed in cash his corresponding share of the houses, which forced his family to buy them from him. The other option was losing the properties in a public sale, as stated by our country's laws. JJ didn't need the money actually. By this point he was a moderately successful professional and lived in his own apartment, but it severed any legal binding he had with his family. That could become a problem in the future. He still kept good relationships with his sister and most of his cousins, but even if they invited him to family gatherings, he always declined. Fast forward 3 years and JJ is getting married to his longtime boyfriend Sky, whose family was the polar opposite of JJ's. When they found out, they made royal wedding style plans for the guy's elopement. They were, very wealthy, and JJ contributed to the whole extravaganza with a portion of his inheritance. He invited as his guests his friends, including here yours truly as his best man, some coworkers, his sister, and the cousins he still spoke to. Don't be wrong, it was a lot of people. The wedding was amazing, done in an underground. Literally speaking, it was a freaking cave venue. His sister took him to the altar. There was an orchestra playing, etc. Fairy tale style. And the after party, well, I can't remember half of it because I was so drunk, but it was from another world. They said go big or go home, and they really went big. But enough of the context. You came here for the juicy part. JJ told the good cousins not to tell anything to his parents or other family members about the wedding because he didn't want trouble. But obviously the next day their social media accounts were full of pictures and word spread out like fire. At first it was small things. He started receiving calls of some aunts about why they weren't invited. The bad cousins complained via Facebook and other nuisances. He just ignored them and blocked numbers and accounts. He did not want or need to give explanations when they had all made clear their position years prior. But one day, hell came directly to the door. His parents, P and M, his maternal grandma, milligrams, and his paternal grandparents, PGS, all the heads of the families, came to visit. How they found where he lived is still a mystery to him. Sky was working, and JJ was alone in the house, so there was no one to help him against the crook squad. His name, not mine, Jajaja. I can't actually transcript because he didn't use exact words when he told me this, but it seems at first they tried to be gentle, asking how he could leave them out of such an important event that directly affected the family. Dudes, really? And things like that. His mom even used the "you took away my chance of seeing my only male son" marriage argument. He pointed out that they were the ones that expelled him from the family and that they hated everything gay. Half of that wedding was LGBT crowd, if you are wondering. They classified his exile as a misunderstanding. The bickering between the six continued for a long time until he got tired and asked what they wanted, as he could not redo the wedding. Milligrams spilled the beans. Ungrateful brat. At least compensate us for not inviting us to a wedding we paid for. That was the problem. Milligrams and his parents were mad he had used the family money on the ceremony. He told me they actually thought he paid for everything and had burned out all the inheritance when it was more a 30-40% of the deal. Sky's family paid more and JJ still had inheritance money and they wanted it back. They had brought the PGS with them as an additional emotional leverage. As I told you earlier, JJ had made sure that money had no legal bindings to his family anymore, but for some reason they still believed it was his to a point and were mad he had spent it. He confronted them, and they threw away their facade. What came next was a serious fight in which both JJ and his father ended hitting each other until the neighbors called the police. Charges were pressed on both sides, but in the end the case was declared a tie. Don't ask me how that was possible, because I don't know, and JJ was not forced to pay 1 cent. He was also able to ask for restraining orders against all of them. Till this day JJ is still shaken about the event. He had prepared himself for years knowing that his family would hate him because of his sexuality, but he still retained some hope that far in the future they could mend things up. He lost that hope after they tried to emotionally scam him. My friend's family cut him of their lives and were mad he had used a share of his inheritance in his wedding without inviting them to it. They wanted him to give the money back, and his dad punched him after he refused. Edit. Wow, this totally blew up as I had not expected. Don't worry, I'm going to show JJ all your kind comments. He will like them. He and Sky are super happy right now. Well, apart from corona, but he sometimes remembers his parents and gets D-Monday blues. He will also probably get jealous I got my first platinum thanks to his life story. Hehe. BTW, thank you kind strangers very much for the prices. And yeah, I know, weeding. Truth be told, I'm secretly a hardcore stoner. Kidding. This always happens with the title as is the only part one don't run through word. Sorry about it. Some people's view of homosexuality is absolutely. My parents are generally loving people, but have said over and over again that they would not allow the spouse of a gay person in their house. Their homophobia is so deeply rooted. I gently call them out every single time. There are people they cared about deeply, that they had in their lives, that have now distanced themselves from them because they are gay, and my parents are so public about their intolerance. But they haven't made any change. I'm straight, but if any of our kids are gay, I'm going to have that conversation with them exactly one last time. If they won't agree to accept my kid 100%, I'm cutting them off. And I won't give a flying fuck, because I've been coddling them for years about it already. I ain't saying it's right, but I watch it firsthand. It's no wonder these gay kids are out there killing themselves. It's such a judgmental and entitled view. How do they think it's okay to throw away a whole human being because of who they are attracted to? As long as it is consenting adults, that's their and only their business. Nobody is gay to spite anybody. It's not a personal insult. They are gay because they are gay. The world would be a boring place if everybody looked, thought, lived and behaved the same. I always want to ask these people, how does somebody else's way of living affect your life? They are, hopefully, not fusing on the dining table, at least not while their mothers are there. Live and let live. How difficult is that? My girlfriend's parents were horribly abusive to her growing up, and when they found out her, 21F, and I, 21F, were dating and she started moving in with me, it was a huge fight. She didn't even get some of her things out because they were so picky about who could come with her to retrieve her things. They refused anyone at all until she mentioned her ex-boyfriend they love, and they allowed him. It was a horrible situation and she hasn't spoken to her since. Couples therapy brought out a lot of repressed abuse she went through growing up, and she has come to realize much of what she thought was normal was actually abuse. We are now engaged, and she still hasn't spoken to them, although not for lack of trying on Ep's part, as they go into her work about once a month and corner her into talking with them, since she works at a customer service desk and can't leave. We are starting to plan our wedding, and it makes me extremely nervous that something like this will happen when we get married, or that they'll try to crash it, as we live in a small town. We've talked about going as far as to hire security for the event, to not allow anyone in who isn't on the list, which is crazy that we have to. I really don't understand how some parents cut ties with their kids. Not only is it really absurd because it's over something they can't control, but it's also ridiculous because it's your own fucking son/daughter. How can you casually ghost the supposedly most important person in your life like that? Your child is something that you would literally die to make sure they have a good life, yet you find it fine to pretend they don't exist and completely throw them out of your life over that. If you were going to do that to your child because of their sexuality, might as well not have children, because you would be the worst parents. It's a tie, because either the police or the district attorney didn't think this one was worth prosecuting. Assuming there was no serious damage, these would be minor misdemeanor battery charges that would take some time to investigate with little payoff. You'd likely get conflicting stories on who initiated the first punch, what the intent of the strike was, and how much damage it caused. All this would have to be investigated, and then authorities would be worried about the likelihood of family witnesses refusing to testify or recanting their stories due to a change of heart. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see the dickhead dad get slapped with a fine or short jail sentence for his actions. It's just that most law authorities are reluctant to get involved in family squabbles without a stronger legal hook. Wow. I can't believe people can be so heartless. Well, I can, but it sucks. I'm so glad that JJ met and married his soulmate and his husband's family are not like his. The wedding sounds like it was the party of the century.